Welcome to the Eurofins E&E North American webinar video on maintaining product compliance. If you have any questions during the presentation, please send an email to marketing@metlabs.com. Eurofins is a global organization. The Electrical and Electronics Division, known as E&E for short, has locations in the United States, Germany, Italy, Finland, France, China, Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand. Let's dive in and take a few minutes to discuss expert services and global market access. Eurofins expert services are utilized when projects are not standard. Our team of professionals are expert-level problem solvers. They assist customers with documentation, technical file construction, and testing plans. Now, let's discuss global market access. This is a key component of expert services. The GMA team, as they're known, specializes in getting your product to all markets on planet Earth. We can provide all of your testing needs through our extensive network of Eurofins labs. Where required, we can arrange, plan, and manage in-country testing overseas. As you may know, the route to compliance in the European Union is the CE mark. This map shows the countries that CE markings allows you to access, but only if your testing is successful. So, what is CE marking? CE marking is the process by which a product is placed on the market. It is placed directly on the product, and there are several rules about how and where. CE marking requires a declaration of conformity to be signed, and that needs to be backed up by a technical documentation. Sometimes a notified body opinion is required, but that is a self-declaration exercise in most cases. There are a few considerations for CE marking. You must consider technical compliance, administrative compliance, and whether you are using the right directive. Here you can see examples of directives. We will talk a bit about the first four, but there are many others. EMC is the ability of one or more pieces of electrical or electronic equipment to operate within defined parameters in the same electromagnetic environment. In other words, ensuring that turning your coffee pot on won't cause your TV to flicker. The Low Voltage Directive, sometimes referred to as the Safety Directive, covers the main hazards involved with electrical products. The Radio Equipment Directive covers products that have wireless functionality, ranging from short-range devices to 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi and much more. Let's take a few minutes to discuss the responsibilities of the manufacturer, importer, and distributor. The manufacturer is someone who manufactures the product or has a product designed or manufactured and places it on the market under their own name or trademark. This includes people who assemble, pack, process, label, or rebrand ready-made products under their own name or trademark. One of the primary responsibilities for global market access is the conformity assessment. The importer is someone who places a product from a third country, like China, in another market. The importer's obligation builds on the obligations of the manufacturer, and those still apply. The importer is responsible for the CE mark and the associated actions related to the product and labeling. The distributor is someone on the supply chain, other than the manufacturer or the importer, who makes a product available on the market. Distributors are subject to specific obligations and have a key role to play in the context of market surveillance. Distributors must know which products bear the CE marking, what information goes with the product, language requirements for labeling, and what makes the product non-compliant. Now let's look at a specific scenario involving the EU market surveillance of LED floodlights. 82 products were sampled. At the time of surveillance, they were all placed on the market. The EU looked at technical and administrative compliances, as well as CE marking and the documents that backed up Declaration of Conformity, or DOC for short. These were the results. 41% had technical compliance for EMC, 10% for low voltage, 46% had administrative compliance. However, combined, only 2% of products were actually okay. This was a poor result of this kind of survey. The Commission put together a list of actions. 1% of products were recalled. 46% were withdrawn from the market. 14% were prohibited from being sold. 9% received a letter stating that non-compliances needed to be resolved. 20% received a letter or notice sent by the Commission letting them know they weren't in good standing. 10% were told that no action was needed because the compliance breaches were not severe enough to warrant action. So, what caused these issues to occur? Maybe it was the wrong standard, or a lack of documentation, or wrong DOC, which is actually quite common. Or it may have been the wrong version of the directive. Unaccredited, incorrect testing possesses great risk and no documentation, or an incorrect DOC is illegal. Here is an example of the type of information that needs to be included. Directive, standard, dates, who they are, and what the product is. It must be signed, and it is important that it stays up to date. When working with CE markings, be wary of administrative conformance. The DOC is a legal document. If that's wrong, then you're breaking the law, and the person who signs it is liable for prosecution. If testing is wrong, the DOC is wrong, which adds to the problem. If the evidence isn't there, how can we prove that the product is compliant? Holes and gaps in arguments happen, particularly for the radio equipment directive. If you have a pre-approved radio module that is added to a product, you need to redo the DOC, look at the administrative compliance, and make sure there is follow-up activity because you've basically changed the product. We will discuss documentation going out of date in depth later. One thing that is often misunderstood is that you can't say buy CE marked subsystems and then say that a product containing those subsystems is CE marked. You must ensure that your documentation is appropriate for the market that you're selling in. CE marking must be right. If you're unsure or don't know what you're doing, ask for help. Now we're going to talk about the CB scheme. In this map, all the orange countries are now included in the CB scheme. The CB scheme is governed by the International Electrotechnical Committee and is seen as a passport to electrical safety compliance, gaining you access to 54 countries. Some of them require additional administrative processes in addition to the CB certification. Testing must be done by a CB test lab like Eurofins. When the CB scheme is applied, we test to the international version of a standard. There are deviations for some countries like Australia, the United States, and Canada. These take into consideration the different voltage requirements, plugs, and other regional differences around the world. An independent CB department review test reports, providing an extra level of assurance. A common situation we see is when a customer comes to us and says that they've been CE marked and selling in Europe, but now they want to sell in another market. You need to have that discussion early on with a test lab so they can provide you with information on what will be needed to go to a market in different locations. Also, CB certifications have an expiration. However, as long as the standard does not change, that process is basically a reissuing of the certification. Next, we will discuss North American compliance for the US and Canada. When you talk about the United States, you can't have a similar approach like we've discussed with the CB or the EU versions. We can test to the IEC standard, or in some cases, there is a UL standard needed for compliance. Often, NRTL marking is required. In terms of radio, sometimes a telecommunications certification body, or TCB, is needed to get approvals from a government certification body like the Federal Communications Commission. You can reduce the need for this additional testing by using pre-approved modules. NRTL marking is the mark of a nationally recognized testing laboratory. This program is governed by OSHA, and it is necessary for all equipment used in a workplace. However, many large retailers like Walmart and Costco refuse to stock a product that does not bear an NRTL mark, even if it is not intended for use in the workplace. Eurofins E&E North America was the first testing lab to be given OSHA-certified NRTL status. We offer cost-effective product safety certification and only require 2 surveillance audits per year, resulting in reduced costs for our clients. If you have a listing with another NRTL, the process to transfer to the MET mark is very easy. Let's talk about global market access. There are 197 countries in the world, and the majority of them have different compliance requirements. The good news is we have a network of GMA partners, and we are experts in certifying products for global markets. GMA falls into 2 categories: admin process GMA and in-country testing GMA. It would be impossible to talk about all 197 countries, so we will look at a few examples of an admin process. The first examples are from Australia and New Zealand. The equivalent of the NRTL or CE mark is known as RCM. To comply with RCM safety requirements, you will need a CB certificate with Australia deviations. For EMC and radio, RCM will accept reports from the EU or US. A big difference is that an in-country representative is required. Another country that is a good example is Peru. In Peru, there is an MTC approval for wireless. This includes Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular, and Zigbee. They accept FCC test reports for EMC and radio. There is no in-country rep needed. So, where do people go wrong? They do not have accredited NRTL, EU, or FCC reports. They may not be using a pre-approved radio module, or they may add an antenna or modify the gain, which makes the existing certification invalid. At an early stage, we can provide insight into what modules, components, and power supply units to incorporate. We can provide in-country representatives through our extensive network of Eurofins or partner labs. We undertake the entire admin process, and we have a dedicated project management team that will serve as a single point of contact throughout the process. Let's look at a few more examples, but this time for in-country testing GMA. Brazil is a good example of this. Brazil requires full in-country testing, though it may be costly if you have other certifications. They don't accept any other tests. The authorities and certifications in Brazil are the InMetro certification for safety and EMC and Anatel for wireless. You must send product samples to the country. This can be difficult because you must attach the right paperwork along with the appropriate documentation. We are very familiar with this process, and we can help you get it done. Now, let's take a look at China. In China, in-country testing is required, and it must be conducted by government lab. It must have CCC approval for safety and EMC and SRRC approval for wireless. Samples must also be sent into the country, and a factory inspection may be required. An auditor from China may come in to ensure that the product is being made in line with how it should be. So, where do people go wrong with in-country testing? The first and the biggest reason is that they don't know where to start, what mark is needed, or who the authorities are. Additionally, they have no contacts in the country and don't understand the lead times or complexity of the process. The good news is we can help. Our experts have in-depth knowledge of all global market requirements, and we have more than 800 labs across 50 countries with a large network of partner labs. We can provide upfront cost and lead times so manufacturers can make decisions at an early stage. Let's discuss ongoing compliance. CE marketing and global market access merge when we talk about ongoing compliance. It's common to think that once a product is on the market, all the testing and requirements are done. This is false. For example, if you have a laptop with a 2-year lifespan, the product must stay in compliance every day it's on the market. That is a very important point. If standards change, the product changes, or you add functionality, the documentation has to be updated. We have seen this with many Internet of Things or IoT devices. For example, a refrigerator with Bluetooth requires the manufacturer to look at the radio directive and not the usual directive. Standards changing also signal that documentation must be updated. The compliance documentation must change with the product and the legislation as standards evolve. Here's an example from a rail sector survey we conducted. Of the 113 documents received, 75 had out-of-date compliance documentation and therefore were non-compliant. It's a good idea to plan, do, check, and act. Make sure you know what you're aiming for during the design process. An important part of the compliance documentation is the quality control procedure. Most directives don't require you to test every single product to ensure they're the same quality. This should be part of the company's strategy for compliance. Product recall can and will happen if you get this wrong. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, so you must do your due diligence. Early engagement is key. Having a plan at the beginning can help ensure your admin and technical compliance are done correctly and your maintenance is set up and running as it should be. At that point, we can advise you about the ongoing strategy for compliance. We are experts in the testing, inspection, and certification field. We can provide you with the guidance you need to achieve and maintain compliance. Remember, Eurofins E&E can help. That is the end of our presentation. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please email them to marketing@metlabs.com so a subject matter expert will respond to you directly. If you need more information about Eurofins E&E North America, please visit our website, www.metlabs.com.